In this video, I'll demonstrate the usage, features, and options for the DiceOverlay library token I created for the MapTool VTT application. I'll include in the description a link to the GitHub repo for the current version. I'm running MapTool version 1.18.6, and I've already downloaded the files from the GitHub repo, and this is the only file that you actually require, and let's drag that to your campaign map now. These files are relatively large and may take several seconds for them to show up on your campaign. Once you have them in MapTool, it's easiest to set it up for your players by dragging this to your campaign panel. Let me make a quick macro group and drag a few other macros over for ease of access. And then once that's done, you can really just run the dice macro. A couple things you may have seen real quick is it does look for, and if it cannot find, it will create a user library token. This user-based library token is used to store user customizations, the user last roll, and other user preferences. If this token already exists in your campaign or framework, it will use a Lib DiceOverlay property on that token. And once you've kind of launched the overlay, the easiest way to show how you can use it, in the info macro, it kind of gives you a breakdown of what each of the different buttons or the things you can do, as well as the minimize options here. Okay, but to do a quick demonstration, I'm going to throw a few dice, and the default configuration is to use animation and use audio. As you probably heard there, we did have an exploding dice, so it looks like a D20. And if you mouse over any die, it will show who threw the dice as well as what die it was. You click that, and it will throw again. So that's the default kind of out of the box. Some quick things here. I can do a private throw. So to do that, I can click this, and then you'll see the exploding dice. You'll see it in the chat a share option here. So that shares the chat to other connected players. To kind of go through some of the features within the configuration. So you can select a different, minimize icon as far as what that looks like, right? So this is the default minimize icon. You can select different default dice. These 6 dice come with the library token. Those other files we downloaded, that's where these will be populated. So let's go ahead and do that part now. So here's the backdrops. Let's drag that over. And these tokens will import to a table and then self-destruct. It'll delete themselves. So it's a, go ahead and click OK to get this started. This one's pretty quick because there's only about 300 images in this particular file. I think this one has roughly about 4,200, and this one has something like 3,800 or so. Let's go ahead and get all these imported. Now this is going pretty quick for me. You may have a different experience. I have had this process take several seconds in time. You may see this error message. I do not see this all of the time, but essentially this error message is coming up because I'm deleting a token that the macro was running from. But the important thing here is you do not want to leave these 3 tokens in your campaign file. They're only really meant to get data into a table, and then that table is used to replicate those images to other connected players. You only have to do this once. Players do not have to do this. Once this process has been completed in your campaign, that campaign is done. So let's get this last file imported. And so like in this case, we didn't see the error message here. We did see an error message out in chat. These error messages, though, you can't ignore. I make a comment about that. You just ignore those. Once those files have been imported, you can go into your configuration again, and now you'll see the different dice. So this is what McLeod's included. This is what Gunner's Keep included, and this is the explosive background. Okay, and we can essentially pick our dice just like that. So if I only want to use this McLeod gold trim, then that's all it's going to use. And if I want to go into explosive backgrounds and I want to say, oops, I don't want it to be this, and I want the background to be this, there's two here. You can only pick two, but essentially there's an initial animation that takes place, and then there is an animation that remains under the die. So that's what these two animations are. Close those. The draw rectangle feature, this allows me to essentially, draw. Let me hit apply and I'll show. Apply here, go back into configuration. If I draw a rectangle, this will be the location that all the die land in. So now if I throw my dice, they're always going to land in that rectangle. If I want to reset the rectangle back to the full viewport that you see, you can essentially check this box, hit apply, and it will reset the viewport. The throw type, no bounce, crazy, pretty straightforward. The throw from and bind box. Throw from is to say, like right now, I don't have any token selected and there's nothing impersonated, and you'll see that it comes from the upper left corner here. If I select a token, and this was already checked, and then throw the dice, you'll see it comes from that die. And if I kind of come down here and throw the dice, right, it's always going to land in that box that we created, but it's always going to throw from the dice I have selected or that's impersonated. If I check this box and hit apply, it will move the rectangle centered around the selected token. So in this case, if I do this, it will always kind of land around that token. So if I move over here, and that's convenient for players because that way, the dice land roughly around the same location that your selected token is landing or resides. And if I have a token off the map like this, it uses the best effort to kind of draw that rectangle or, as close to that corner as it can. Okay, so that's an example of the throw from and bind box. Sound options, again, pretty straightforward. Overlay size, I actually like this to be medium. Dice size, same thing. You can change the size of the dice. Chat colors, right? The different chat colors that come out here. Let's turn this back off. And max field check. Max field check is a feature that will reach out to all of your connected clients and resize the field so the smallest how should I say, the smallest field of your connected clients will become the default size. So let's say you've got someone running at a high resolution where their viewport is significantly larger than other connected players. When they throw their dice, oftentimes what happens is lower resolution players don't see them because they fall off the screen. This max field check kind of fixes that. So it will if you hear a player complain that they can't see the dice or they're falling off of the screen, then you can essentially run this and it will double check all the connected clients and make sure that the dice are always visible. Fade dice, that's pretty straightforward. Here's where we can do some additional customizations. Like if you don't want animation, you don't care about the animated backdrops, you don't care about the animated dice that you see, we can really turn off all of those features. If I hit apply here, and then if I roll, it really just comes to chat. There's no delay. It echoes to chat instantly. There's an option to disable the wireframe, so to make it even more lean, you can essentially do that. Right, and that's how that looks. So I think that kind of covers all of the options here. Let's turn this stuff back on. Okay, something else that I've added is I can create favorites. So I'm going to add a favorite here, do another favorite. I have an advanced role I want to do, and I have a series of chance checks I want to do. And once I've added these favorites in, I can get to my favorites list by clicking this, and these are the different favorites. I can delete a favorite. You can only have up to 5. If you create a 6th favorite, it overwrites the 5th. Again, it maxes at 5. To customize each of these, though, it's kind of neat. You can come into here and say, I want to change this into example role. I can customize who can see the chat, who can see the role. I can create a macro for this role if I impersonate a token. I can make it a private role, and I can say don't fade the dice. I'm going to say this one for sure because I want to be able to show. And on my 2d10, I have other options here where I say, hey, this isn't going to be a normal roll, it is actual percentage. And on my 2d12s, this is where my bonus 3, I think, is going to show up. I did that right. And here I want this one to be an advantage roll. So we can also change the look, the size. So let's say this advantage roll, I want to say, let's go huge. Ginormous is actually just too big. Let's do this. And there's my example roll. So now if I click this, right, so the +3 shows up on where I said I want the bonus to show. The larger dice are here. I said this was an advantage throw, so it says, hey, you got a 13 and a 6. It knows to drop the 6, and it puts the big X on it. We said we wanted this one to be a percentage roll, so this one should be 41, and it is. So that's kind of how those different features work. Now, let's say I want to impersonate this token. I'm going to go back into my favorites, and I'm going to say, hey, I want you to create a macro. At that point, here's that example roll macro. So when I roll this, that's how that works. And if I open this, this is what I'll say is the more complex or more verbose method of using the rollDO function. The rollDO function is something that's included within the library token. And this is a complex syntax of how that looks. I'll probably create another video of how GMs or framework designers can use rollDO to very quickly integrate the DiceOverlay into their existing frameworks and into their existing role functions. So you don't have to do a bunch of engineering to integrate this into your existing gameplay. But again, this is an example of what a rollDO function looks like. You can also do something very simple like this, rollDO 2d10, right? So it can be something that simple as well. It does not have to be that complex syntax that you saw. Okay, I think that covers most of the primary features. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thank you.